On this week's episode of 3 Wide, we go over the Watkins Glen race weekend where Kyle Larson was able to sweep both races, holding off AJ Allmendinger. We also go over Kiki Raikkonen making his debut in the Cup Series, as well as the future of Project 91. And we look ahead at this upcoming weekend at Daytona and what will be an exciting cutoff race for the Cup Series playoff. So let's get started. So kicking things off for the weekend was the Xfinity Series on Saturday, where Kyle Larson was able to get the win after Ty Gibbs and William Byron wrecked in the inner loop with 5 laps to go. Now, he did have to hold off AJ Allmendinger, who is a master of these road course races, for the win. But ultimately, Kyle Larson was able to get the checkered flag. AJ Allmendinger came in second, followed by Sammy Smith with third. Noah Gragson, he finished in fourth, followed by Kaz Grala in fifth. Sam Mayer finished sixth. Riley Herbst came in seventh with Sheldon Creed eighth, Josh Berry ninth, and Jeremy Clements rounded out the top 10. And with the deal with Ty and Byron there at the end, it looked like Ty was just going for it all, going for the win. You know, these races at Watkins Glen, as it comes down to the end of the race, drivers get very aggressive, taking a lot of chances, overdriving corners, and that's kind of like what it looked like here in the inner loop. He made an aggressive move. His left side tires went off course in that first little kink in the inner loop, got him out of shape and sent him into William Byron, knocking both out of the win. And it just looked like good hard racing for the race win. It's not like Ty Gibbs went in there and dumped him for the lead, and both ended up spinning. William Byron, it did seem to, he wasn't too happy on the track, at least before the checkered flag fell. Now, by the time they got to pit road, both drivers talked. It was very cordial, it appeared. And I think even Byron said, it's just hard racing and, nothing personal, anything like that, just the way these races go. But Sammy Smith, finishing in third place, gets his first top 5 finish in the Xfinity Series, and he's only had a handful of starts, but each race he just seems to improve. He's a young driver with a bright future ahead of him. The question is, where does he go after this season? Does he get a heavier Xfinity schedule with Joe Gibbs next year? Does he possibly get a full-time shot with Joe Gibbs in that 18 car? Especially if Ty ends up going full-time Cup next season, who knows how that team will look next year. But out of all the drivers who have gotten in that 18 car for part-time starts this season, I'd love to see Trevor Bayne get a full-time shot. He's been the most consistent of all of them, constantly up there running in the top 3, top 4, with chances to win the races. So it'd be good to see him get a shot with a top-tier team just to show what he can do, show his talent. Sammy, he's, like I said, young, but he does have a bright future. He would be better served, I think, to make more starts in the Xfinity Series, just avoid the trucks altogether, just because that seems to kind of could be a black hole for him. It's a black hole for a lot of drivers. If he isn't there running in the top 4 or 5, he's going to be back in a mess in that truck series. So I would hope he avoids the truck series, just kind of focus on Xfinity Series, getting these starts, continuing to improve, and it'll absolutely lead to him getting a full-time shot. He just has that much potential. Now, Riley Herbst, he also comes away with a good, solid 7th place finish, continuing his best season of his career. And this comes just after the vice president of competition over at Stewart-Haas Racing, Greg Zipadelli, says that they will likely have an Xfinity Series next season. It's still kind of nothing's firmed up yet. Should be able to say more in the next 10 to 14 days when things have firmed up. Obviously, I think with Riley having the season he's had and showing improvement over his past couple seasons, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the 98 car. But the rumor is out there that they may expand to 2 cars, whether it's 2 full-time cars or 1 full-time and 1 part-time. But the rumors also are saying that Hailie Deegan may be able to get a shot in the car. I think that would be best for her career, get her out of the truck series where she just hasn't had the best finishes. She's constantly stuck back there with a lot of drivers who don't race respectfully. She's been used up a lot, caught up in things not really of her own doing. I think she does have the talent that she can be a good Xfinity driver. I think she, has a lot of grit to her as far as she don't take anything off of drivers. She's been less aggressive in the Truck Series, but if you look back over her starts in the lower NASCAR competition series, she's shown no problem with bumping guys out of the way for wins. If you use her up, she'd use you up. So I think the Xfinity Series would be a better serve for her career. If she's able to get a shot in that type of ride, that would be excellent for her future. And looking ahead at the playoffs, how the playoffs are looking at the cut line for the Xfinity Series, they still got a few races to go. Their cutoff isn't until Bristol. Sheldon Creed, he was able to make up some more ground. He is now 39 back to Ryan Sieg. Creed was able to score points in both stages and come away with an 8th place finish, while Sieg, he struggled through most of the day. He did come away with a top 15 finish, but the fact that Sheldon was able to get those stage points and come away with the top 10, he's just slowly nipping away at that points gap. And with a track like Daytona coming up, he's in a good spot to get some more points and put himself in a position to make a late run at the playoffs. Going into this weekend's Cup race, tension is high. The drama is picking up for the playoff battle in the Cup Series. And this weekend's race at Watkins Glen did not disappoint. There was a delayed start due to some lightning. And the drivers, they would wind up starting on a wet track. But after all that and holding off A.J. Allmendinger for a second straight race, Kyle Larson was able to sweep the weekend and come away with the win. Behind him in the top 10 was A.J. Allmendinger in second, followed by Joey Logano in third. Chase Eliot came in fourth with Daniel Suarez in fifth. Michael McDowell finished in sixth. Tyler Reddick in seventh. Christopher Bell finished eighth. Chris Buescher finished in ninth. And Eric Jones would round out the top 10 in the Cup race. And it really got interesting with a late restart. You had Kyle Larson and Chase Eliot on the front row. Chase is on I call it the outside, the way they enter turn one. Larson had the inside. And Larson drove it in, hard in turn one on the final restart with just about 5 laps to go, kind of like Saturday. And you could see he was trying to outbrake Chase, to try and push him out of the lane and get him off his train of thought, I guess. And Kyle was able to do that, get ahead with the lead, and hold on for the victory. Post-race, Kyle did say he's not proud of the move, but in the moment, he did what he had to do to win. He mentioned to Bob Pockrest he doesn't have many wins or playoff points and did what he did to benefit his team and their playoff outlook. He understands if Chase is upset. He hadn't seen Chase or had heard any interview that Chase had done. He didn't know where Chase stood at the time. And per Jeff Gluck on his Twitter account, he said Larson alluded to he'll deal with being raced hard in return. And Chase, you could tell he wasn't that happy, wasn't that pleased. He had a conversation with Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon post-race. In the interview with NBC post-race, he did mention that, all he can do is he'll just, congratulate Kyle. He deserves it. So, but you could tell there was just still a little tension there behind his words. I'm not saying anything that'll probably pop up on a race weekend. I'm sure they'll have an interesting competition meeting this upcoming week, and I'm sure all will be straightened out by then. But like I said, Chase, I understand if he's upset as well. To me, I did not see this as any dirty or flagrant move by Kyle Larson. Number one, this is with this playoff system, this is what it's going to create. Granted, even before the playoff system, you would have moments like this at the end of races, especially at Watkins Glen. But with the playoffs, it does happen more often than not. So that's just the system we're in now, like it or not. And like I said, Kyle didn't dump him. He just simply did a racing move. He took up Chase's real estate, took away a lane from Chase, and benefited from it and went away with the win. So Kyle did what he had to do. Like he said, he doesn't have as many wins as he did last year going into the playoffs. So he's trying to get what points he can to help himself have another shot at the championship. And that's just the way the racing goes now. And it's only going to get worse from here, honestly. So going into some of these playoff races like Bristol and your, the Roval and all things like this are going to happen. So you might as well move on from it and just deal with it, because that's the way it's going to be and the way it's been over the past few years. The big storyline over the weekend, though, was Kimi Raikkonen making his debut in the Cup Series. He's driving really for Trackhouse Racing in their Project 91 car, where they're hoping to have a lot of crossover drivers. And it was a solid debut for the former Formula One champion. People were posting over on social media all the different countries they were, tuning in from to watch Kimi race in the NASCAR Cup Series. A lot of them saying this is their first NASCAR race they've ever watched, which to me strengthens this whole Project 91 deal for Trackhouse Racing. Kimi, he had shown some speed over the weekend in practice, got into the top 10 at one point in the race, was looking pretty solid, spent most of the day in the top 20. Unfortunately, he wrecked with 46 laps to go after Ross Chastain spun out Austin Dillon coming out of the inner loop. That, kind of created a log jam in traffic, and Kimi came up on the back of the 27 car and wound up making contact with the wall head on, and which would end his day, unfortunately. Trackhouse, they didn't say over the weekend they hope to do 6 to 9 races next year in this Project 91 car, and I would be interested to see Kimi come back. He was open to returning. I'd love to see him race next year at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. He's raced there before in the Formula One Series. He won there in 2018. He had a podium finish in 2017. So he knows how to get around the track. And I think that would be the best race for him to have a good, successful run in this 91 car. And who knows what could happen with the way these races turn out. Just look at COTA this past season. And I think that would be an excellent race for him to come to next season. Marcus Ericsson and Jenson Button, I may be saying that name wrong, but they tweeted out interest about running the 91 car for Trackhouse Racing next year. And that's a huge win for this whole deal that they've started. And so it got me to thinking who I would like to see make the crossover to race in the 91 car for the Cup Series. Names that immediately came to mind are drivers like Alexander Rossi from IndyCar. You got Helio Castroneves, who had made comments in Pensacola when he won the SRX race earlier this season that if he had won a race in the SRX series, Donald Hawk, who runs the series, he would get him a cup ride. So that's immediately a connection there that would be interesting to see at possibly like a Daytona race. I'd also think it'd be cool to watch Tony Kanaan, Daniel Ricciardo, and could it open the door for Juan Pablo Montoya return to the Cup Series? So it's a lot of hope and a lot of interest in this deal. It's definitely a win for Justin Marks to have this program. It's going to be huge for NASCAR, and I'm sure they will throw what support behind it they can. And who knows? I mean, you put any of those guys in a race, especially at a road course, and like a Ricardo or a Juan Pablo Montoya, and they can come away with an upset win real quick. Absolutely. But going back to our every Sunday regulars, it was a solid day for some playoff hopefuls. Michael McDowell, he was able to lead 14 laps. He looked like he had a pretty good shot to get a win, to get himself that playoff spot. However, he faded at the end. He would wind up finishing 6th. Eric Jones, another driver hoping to get in the playoffs, he finished in 10th place. And I saw some playoff stats from Austin, and I could be saying his last name completely wrong, Koninsky. He put up that Kurt Busch has now officially clinched a spot without a new winner in this race. That means we will not have 17 winners. So whoever wins next week, it will not affect Kurt Busch in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, Corey LaJoie, even if he gets a win next week at Daytona, he will not make the playoffs. He's just too far below 30th in points, which you have to be at least to get a shot at the playoffs. There's a 71-point gap, so there's no way he could make that gap even with the win and winning every stage. And Ryan Blaney right now goes into Daytona 25 points above Martin Truex Jr. in a cutoff race. And we'll discuss here in a second when we go over this weekend's Daytona races. Ryan Blaney, I feel like, is in the catbird seat for when the checkered flag falls come Saturday. And this week, our 2 spotlight drivers, we have one guy who hasn't had a lot of starts this year, but he was able to make the most out of the one he had this past weekend at Watkins Glen. And also another driver who is looking just to get his footing in on the Cup Series and try to show what potential he had shown in the Xfinity Series. So starting with the Xfinity Series spotlight driver, my pick is Kaz Grala, who was able to get his first top 5 in the Xfinity Series since 2020. He was driving Saturday for Big Machine Racing, And Kaz is going to be a name to watch over the next season. I feel like I think he could be next in the Richard Childress Racing pipeline if Austin Hill moves on to Cup to replace Tyler Reddick in 2024. Kaz has made some starts for Richard Childress. He replaced Austin Dillon back in 2020 at the Daytona Road Course when Austin had gotten COVID-19 and was able to lead laps and come away with a top 10 finish in that race, and definitely boosted his stock some there. But ever since then, starts have been, pretty scarce for him. He has scored more, another top 10 here and there in both the Cup and Xfinity Series. So it was an overall solid race. He hung around there at the front most of the day, and that, like I said, will be a name to watch over the next season to see where he may wind up in next year's busy, silly season. And on the Cup side, my spotlight driver is Cole Custer. While he didn't get a top 10, he was able to finish 11th and lead 7 laps. And this is coming when talk of his future is at an all-time high in the Cup Series with Stewart-Haas Racing. He's, came into the Cup Series with a lot of potential and a lot expected of him. He comes up with Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe, and all 3 drivers, rightfully so, moved up to the Cup. I mean, Cole was lighting it up and winning a lot of races there, and he does have the talent. He can get the wins. It's just been a struggle for some reason for him to get his footing in the Cup Series. But he has shown more life over the past month. It's been inconsistent, but he has shown more life. He's been leading some laps here and there, getting stage points, and 2 of his top 10s on the season have come in the last month or 2 of the season. So if he can just keep this, steady improvement and consistency from here on out, that could lead to a hopeful big 2023 for him. That's definitely going to be their goal. I think after Daytona, everybody who isn't in the playoffs, they are going to be focusing on next season and getting their stuff together. And that could be, very good for Custer if his team can kind of rally behind him. They can start taking excellent notes, especially with this being the first year of the next-gen car. That could lead to him having an even better 2023. And looking, this upcoming weekend is Daytona. One of my favorite race weekends, even before the playoff series, the Daytona night race. It's always a fantastic race to watch. It was better back when it was on July 4th weekend, but either way, even with it now a playoff or a cutoff race for the playoffs for the Cup Series, it is still an exciting weekend to watch some racing. We'll have action from the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. And on the Xfinity side, you have Justin Haley, the defending winner, returning, driving for Colleague Racing in the 14 car. And this could be a huge benefit for Landon Castle, who is kind of hovering just above that cut line. Needs, a win badly just to lock himself into that playoff and get himself some playoff points. And Colleague is no stranger to success at these super speedways, especially when it comes to Justin Haley. So this could be a huge weekend for Landon Castle. So keep an eye on him come Friday night. And Sheldon Creed is the other driver that I would keep an eye on. This is a good track for him. He's a strong super speedway racer, along with his teammate Austin Hill, who is going to be a favorite as well. So this could be a race where Creed is able to gain, even more points on that gap between him and Ryan Sieg. And on the Cup side, Ryan Blaney just happens to be the defending winner of this race. And, to me, I think he just needs to survive. He has got Truex really where he wants him. He's got him out of his comfort zone. Martin, he's made 34 starts at Daytona in his Cup Series career. And in those 34 starts, he's only got 5 top 10s and 3 top 5s. And the Super Speedways has not been Truex's strong suit in the Cup Series for some reason. He was good and strong in the Xfinity Series, but it just has not translated over to the Cup side. So whereas Blaney is probably one of his stronger top styles of racing, he is in the catbird seat to come away with a playoff spot if, we don't have a new winner by the time the checkered flag falls Saturday. And I got 5 drivers to watch, and that is, of course, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell, Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski. And all 5 of those guys are solid super speedway racers. Keselowski and Buescher, they won the duels at Daytona earlier this year. Michael McDowell, a Daytona 500 champion. Bubba Wallace, who's finished second in the Daytona 500 twice. He won at Talladega this past season in the fall. and Eric Jones, who's gotten 2 wins, one of them in the Clash, the other at this Saturday night Daytona Cup race in his career. So while Blaney may have the edge over Truex, he's definitely going to be sweating and trying, I'm sure, to go for the win. But ultimately, if he can just stay in the race and hope that a new driver doesn't get a win, he will be, the guy to watch and come away with that final playoff spot by the time the race ends Saturday night. And that will wrap up this week's episode of 3 Wide. As always, thank you for joining me and listening along. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button from wherever you're listening to your podcast from. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week. Enjoy this weekend's races, as we will meet back same time next week to go over what is sure to be a memorable race weekend at Daytona. And we'll go over who is left standing to fight for the NASCAR Cup Championship.